Hello everyone, Critical Matt bringing you another episode of Kaiju Madness covering a direct sequel to the legendary Kaiju masterpiece Gojira 1954. Welcome to episode 2, Godzilla Raids Again. Godzilla Raids Again released originally in 1955, April 24th in Japanese theaters. The sequel had a massive obstacle to overcome, and that was the monumental international success of Gojira 1954. The film is now legendary and a staple in classic movies. It's one that conveyed a powerful anti-war, anti-nuke message. So it begs the question, can Godzilla Raids Again possibly compete with its predecessor? Well, that's what I'm here today to find out, so sit back, get comfortable, and join me on this magical journey. Godzilla Raids Again opens on a plane directing fishing vessels to large schools of fish. I had no clue this was a thing. It's pretty neat to see. This is one of those things I love about older and foreign films. They often give you neat little insights in a time period and culture they were shot in. The shots of the ocean and miniature planes are pretty good too. Our pilot calling in a school of Bonito is Soichi Tsukioka and one of our heroes. The woman receiving him via radio is Hidemi Yamaji. She's the main love interest for Tsukioka and our heroine for the film. She's responsible for directing and facilitating communication between ships and planes hunting for schools of fish. Fortunately for us, they don't repeat the same love triangle trope from Gojira 1954. They are already in an established and healthy relationship, and Hidemi has something to do in the film other than just overacting like our former heroine Emiko. To be fair, I'm being a little mean to Emiko from the previous film. Hashtag Critical Matt, stop cyberbullying Emiko. Our third and final hero, Koji Kobayashi, also a pilot and known further into the film as Mr. Groom, calls in a mayday and is forced to do an emergency landing on the shores of a nearby island after his engines fail. Hidemi, quick to react, radios her boyfriend Tsukioka to do an emergency rescue. See, I told you Hidemi actually has things to do in the film. Again, I keep bullying poor Emiko when Nagato was frankly, even arguably, more useless in the previous film. We also see Hidemi run to the office of her boss, Yamaji, her father, to report the emergency. Wait, her father is her boss. Nepotism, I say. Nepotism. J'accuse. Fortunately, though, for Kobayashi, Tsukioka is quick to spot him from the air. Besides a minor hand injury, Kobayashi appears to be okay. Just a fun little tidbit, they use models to represent the seaplanes, but use the real deal for the cockpit shots. It's here, on Awato Island, we get our first glimpse of Godzilla in the film on the cliffs above our pilots. But wait, Godzilla isn't alone, and is battling for dominance against a new and unknown monster. Our heroes hide within the crevices of the cliffside as the two massive titans duke it out. As the pilots are pelted with the breeze from the battle, we get our first shot of the new monster crawling on all fours, his back covered in spikes, his snout tipped with vicious horns and pointed spikes along the end of his tail. The new monster and Godzilla meet in a tender, sweet, romantic embrace before their rigorous rutting sends them tumbling down into the ocean below. Afterwards, we cut to Saka headquarters where they are carrying out a meeting on the new events. They name the beast as an Ankylosaurus, aka Angarius, a dinosaur from the same period as Godzilla. We also see a return of Professor Yamane from the Gojira, which is a pleasant surprise. Yamane explains this Godzilla is a different one from the last film. The death of the original as of now is canon. I wasn't expecting this level of continuity this early on in this film. The meeting continues, giving us a rundown of Agarius' attributes, his brain distributed along his thorax, making it a very agile creature. Is a carnivore and is extremely aggressive. It's also stated Godzilla is unstoppable with conventional weapons, that their focus should be to discover where they are and to predict where they may come ashore. Dr. Yamane notes that they should evacuate the civilians and issue a blackout, that Godzilla is extremely sensitive to light, sending him into a rage. He contemplates perhaps it brings back memories of the hydrogen bomb testing that irradiated it and drove it from his home. Poor Godzilla is suffering from PTSD. Someone get this man some SRIs. He comes up with the idea, though, that perhaps they can use flares to lure Godzilla away. This is really well done, and I like it a lot. It establishes some nice lore and also expands on Godzilla as a monster and a character. They use this information in a creative way of how they can safely deal with him. We get a nice little personality profile of Agarius on top of it. Something that was emphasized in these early films was that each monster has their very own unique personality, and they always make an effort at differentiating them from one another. Around this time, they start fleshing out Hideami's and Tsukioka's relationship. They do a little better this time with the love interest in this film. I'm kind of going from scene to scene, but I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit, or this script might end up being as long as the movie. From here, it's them utilizing their seaplanes to search for Godzilla, and after finding him, mapping and predicting his path. There's also a brief mention that him terrorizing the waters may harm the fishing industry, and laughing that they won't get to enjoy fish. Did you guys see that? Replay it. Okay, so that's questionable, and I'm not touching that one with a 50-foot pole. Well, alright, you see, Japan had this weird thing, like, their animation industry of the time was deeply inspired by Disney, and we all know how Disney used to draw African Americans. Well, let's just say that pretty much explains it and move on from there. Besides the questionable sign, we get a great shot of the city all lit up and a scene of people dancing and enjoying themselves that Godzilla seems to diverge his path from Osaka Bay. This celebration, however, is short-lived as an announcement comes citywide that Godzilla is in fact heading back for Osaka, and the people start fleeing in terror as the lights start going out. There are some great scenes of Godzilla emerging from the ocean. These are some of my favorite in the series so far. Just something ominous and fantastic about it. It's well shot. They put into action their plan to lure Godzilla away with flares, and at first it appears to work to their relief. Kobayashi and Tsukioka head towards Hidemi's father Yamaji, who's monitoring the situation. Meanwhile, we get a brief subplot of a transport full of prisoners plotting an escape. They overtake the vehicle and hijack a tanker, leading the police into a chase. It ends with the prisoners crashing into what appears to be some kind of industrial factory or maybe a fish cannery of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It switches to a miniature model of a truck crashing and exploding, and it's pretty fucking awesome. This sets the factory on fire, burning brightly, and oh no, this turns Godzilla's attention back ashore to the now brighter burning flames of the factory. The flares were working, but now due to the unforeseen prisoner escape, the burning fire turns Godzilla's rage back towards Osaka. Oh my god, look at it. They're so fucking cute. See the little miniature army guys firing rockets at Godzilla and the little toy tanks? I fucking love it. Of course, the heavy artillery has little effect on Godzilla, and he uses his radioactive breath to catch fire to a plane in the sky. What's this? A wild Anguirus appears from the ocean into the fray.
Hello, guys. Why are you shooting at me?
This is the first time we see him since the start of the film. It's here we get the pleasure of watching two full-grown men wrestling in foam rubber costumes. They continue to fire rockets and explosives to no effect at the two as they have an all-out brawl. I really like the sound he used for Angarius' roar. It's very otherworldly. While we do get cutaway reactions of various characters, I love they spin long, beautiful shots of the two fighting as well as the mayhem and havoc they wreak across the city. They took care to make sure the monsters fight very differently from each other, and Garius uses the horns on his head to gore at Godzilla's abdomen while kicking his legs and sharp talons in the air at Godzilla's chest and throat. Godzilla attempts to keep a chokehold on him and bites at his opponent. The monsters seemingly communicated with each other too, using their own unique monster language to do so. After a long battle, Godzilla manages to wear Angarius down and clamp onto his throat, gravely wounding Angarius. For triumph, Godzilla tosses his foe into the waters of the ocean and sets him ablaze with his breath attack. Asaka is bathed in a sea of rising flames caused by the aftermath of their legendary battle. The battle was fucking awesome too, with great special effects. The miniature city was also really well designed and intricate, making it even more satisfying to watch the destruction. You gotta love the really long, uninterrupted shots of the great fight between the two monsters. They sped up the footage here and there, which had the effect of making it a tad goofier than they probably intended, but that's par for the course for the genre. Due to the massive destruction of Osaka, they have to move the base of operations to Hokkaido. Godzilla Raids Again has a definite shift in tone by comparison to Gojira 1954. 1954 was far more somber, depressing, and filled with an atmosphere of loss, fear, and despair. In Hokkaido, we get a great scene of them all celebrating, drinking together, and singing songs. This is another great display into traditional Japanese culture, pouring sake for each other and jubilant laughter. It's around here Kobayashi gets the nickname of Mr. Groom, as he himself is looking for someone to call his bride. This film has far more light-hearted moments and is a more straightforward action drama. I like the dynamics between the three main characters, Hidemi, Tsukioka, and Kobayashi. They give you enough time with them, allowing for proper character development and for us to get attached to them as characters, but it doesn't drag or meander to the point of detracting from the kaiju action we crave. We get a nice little scene with Kobayashi and Hidemi about how he's possibly met a girl. She sneaks a little peek at his picture of her he keeps in a little journal. Wait a minute. Someone, quick! Call Chris Hansen! Jokes aside, she looks a little young for you, Kobayashi, and that's a bit suspicious. I guess Mr. Groom should be called Mr. Pervert. I guess she could just look young for her age. Also, we don't get the best look at the photo, I guess, but let's call Chris Hansen just to be safe.
Hello, everybody. Editor Matt here, and when I wrote this part of the script, I was going off memory and didn't have the clip directly in front of me, but going back and getting the clip, I realized she's like fucking 14. I reiterate, somebody call Chris Hansen.
Go ahead and take a seat.
But I'm not going to do this.
Take a seat right over there.
Okay, I'm getting a little bit off track here and possibly out of order, but fuck it, I'm going to keep going. In a final meeting, they devise a new plan of attack, tracking Godzilla to find him near an island heading towards a valley surrounded by snow-capped mountains. They're going to use flares and fires to keep him within the valley while having a squad of fighter planes launch rockets at the mountains to cause an avalanche, burying Godzilla in ice and snow. And of course, our heroes, being former fighter pilots, Kobayashi and Tsukioka, volunteer for the dangerous mission. They carry out their plan of action. Several planes crash into the mountainside or are burned out of the sky by Godzilla's radioactive breath while they fire rockets at the mountains. And one of our pilots that is lost in this operation is Kobayashi. With his and the other heroic sacrifices, though, they are able to bury Godzilla in a mountain of ice and snow. Alright, time for me to complain. I applaud their creativity. They had to come up with a way to stop a monster that is immune to conventional weapons. And remember me mentioning earlier Godzilla burning planes out of the sky, right? Godzilla can melt fucking steel. He has a hot radioactive breath attack. Why doesn't he just burn his way out of the ice? This could have been easily fixed with a one-off line from the scientist, something like, "Oh, due to Godzilla's biology, the ice will cool him down and send him into a hibernated state." It also seems a tad cheap to me to sacrifice Kobayashi. He's the light-hearted funny man for the entirety of the movie. It's clear to me they wanted you to become endeared to him to mourn his loss. Honestly, though, it just doesn't work for me. It feels forced and like they wanted a heroic sacrifice just because 1954 ended with a heroic sacrifice. The effects are really cool, though, and again, I applaud their creativity. So, we made it finally to the portion of the video where I answer, does Godzilla Raids Again hold up? Is it a good sequel? The answer is, drum rolls please. Yeah, I enjoyed it anyways. It doesn't hold a candle compared to 1954, but I honestly doubt any movie ever will. Gojira 1954 just holds so much historical significance and had so many underlying darker themes and messaging in the film. Raids Again was more of a straightforward monster action movie, and that's okay. It was fun. The fight between Angarius and Godzilla was awesome. While I had my complaints, I thought it was creative how they decided to deal with the threat of Godzilla. It also did an excellent job of fleshing out our kaiju friend. I don't envy Raids Again. Being a direct sequel, it had a lot to live up to. I'm glad they didn't just try to clone the exact success of 1954 or just reproduce the same plot over again. It allows the original to be its own unique thing while taking the series into a new direction. I didn't know Raids Again existed when I set out to write the script, and I'm glad I watched it. Though I have my doubts of it being a film I will return to often, I enjoyed it for what it is. Well, that's it, guys. If you made it this far in, you're a trooper. Like, sub, comment, and do all those YouTube things. I was slow on this one, I know. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Kaiju Madness.